for 40 years, despite all of my losses, including those of my mother, girlfriend, and son. John Travolta, 71, recently made a choice that startled his closest friends: music. Something changed in him after he lost his son Jet years earlier and Kelly Preston in 2020. He began bidding farewell in ways that alarmed those around him in 2025. He has been donating sentimental, personal belongings. He recorded what he refers to as his farewell speech to his fans. His family is afraid. This year's death hoaxes weren't coincidental. Music. He's not telling us something. You will be devastated by what John learned about his own destiny. On February 18, 1954, John Travolta was born in Englewood, New Jersey, the youngest, music, of 6 kids. While his mother, Helen, kept the household together with her acting studies and her own aspirations from the theater. His father, Salvatore, operated a modest tire business and bore the financial burden. Even at the age of 12, John sensed a warm draw toward that world as he watched her practice with a spark in her eyes. It was evident in one school play. The audience let out a roar as he entered the stage and moved with a sort of spark. He was struck by that sound like a door opening. Despite their lack of possessions, the family enjoyed stories, music, and noise. Particularly when Helen rehearsed performances of shows like The Sound of Music in the living room. John took it all in as if he were breathing. While the house remained modest and the finances tight, those moments molded something inside him, giving him hope. The walls were never quiet when I was growing up in that musical household. Songs from Oklahoma and My Fair Lady filled every nook and cranny of Helen's rehearsals. John would interrupt without being asked. He mimicked movements, danced, sang, and made such theatrical faces that neighbors would occasionally peek through the music window to observe the small child in the center of the room. His mother continued to encourage him, telling him he had something unique, despite the fact that he was the youngest and occasionally treated like the runt. He resorted to music whenever he felt small or alone. His fears were drowned away by the music. He repeatedly claimed that those performances in the living room saved his life. Music. The house may not have been wealthy, but creativity pervaded every space, propelling him into an unimagined future. It was different in school. John's slight build and stutter, which muddled his language, made him a persistent target of bullying. Due of his pale skin, children called him Pinky. He wanted to disappear before lunch most days since they made fun of his voice and his gait, so he retreated into his own world. He turned hurt into comedy by doing little sketches for his siblings at home. He found that performing helped him relax. He was able to ignore the pain from school thanks to it. When his mother saw how much anguish he carried, she encouraged him to go to the theater so he could channel those emotions into energy. By high school, he had radically transformed every time he performed song. He was viewed as if he controlled the room's lighting. What started off as weakness gradually transformed into strength. When he was 12, he experienced his first true moment. Helen was the director of Who Will Save the Plowboy, a community play, music, and give him a minor part. The scene was straightforward, but as soon as he left, something changed. He sneaked in accents that weren't in the script, inserted small gags, and altered music, his tone. He froze, taken aback by the sound of the crowd's laughter and applause. Even the grown-ups backstage were shocked when they gave him a standing ovation, which is extremely uncommon. That evening, it made clear to him the purpose of his existence: music. He let that emotion to guide him for years. He went farther at 16. Despite his parents' pleas for him to finish, he left Dwight Mororo High School. He grabbed what little money he had, packed a little bag, and moved to New York City. He worked any job he could find and paid $1 sack night to remain in a YMCA dorm. He did the dishwashing. He brought flowers. Wherever someone needed assistance, he cleaned. During the day, he sneaked into places he wasn't authorized to be in to attend free acting classes. He returned to the small YMCA bed at night and vowed to live another day. He never allowed melancholy to triumph. He thought there was a purpose to the conflict. If he continued to knock, he thought the city would open a door for him. After that, Helen assisted him in locating the local theater's Playhouse School, where he studied voice with Dan Sullivan. Sullivan recognized something raw and organic in John. However, he cautioned him that skill by itself would never suffice. He explained that if he didn't develop a thick skin, the industry would break him. John paid attention. The training was emotionally charged and full of intense music. He discovered how to mold each action and regulate his voice. He gradually stopped stuttering. He carried Sullivan's admonition like a silent reminder after he concluded the presentation. Even in subsequent important situations, he utilized it to keep himself grounded. Music. He got his first paid work at the Cherry Lane Theater in Bye Bye Birdie when he was 16. The same year, he relocated to New York. He made $75 a week. The backstage area felt claustrophobic, and the stage was tiny. However, he gained fresh knowledge each night. He studied how to hold an audience, studied older actors, and committed lines to memory. The excitement of performing off-Broadway gave him the confidence he sorely needed. He felt that he truly belonged in show business because of those months. He co-starred with Bly Danner in the off-Broadway production of Rain 2 years later, in 1972. Due to negative reviews, the performance closed after just 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, he was broke. He spent hours walking in the hopes of being cast, and he slept on park benches. He carried the anguish of that period with him. It showed him how easily someone could be elevated by the music industry and then dropped again. He continued to audition, nevertheless. He wouldn't give up. The 1973 Greek national tour followed. Duty was his song. Although it wasn't a major part, it allowed him to experiment on stage. The cast laughed at his spontaneous dance moves. Although the journey was difficult, he gained experience performing in different cities night after night. He advanced because of the lengthy bus travels, the camaraderie he formed with other performers, and the thrill of consistent work. He later gained recognition for larger roles thanks to that tour. In 1974, he performed alongside the Andrews Sisters on Broadway with Over Here. After 341 performances, the play won the season's top musical award. He possessed a tenor voice that many were unaware he had, and he sung a million miles away. During music previews, he battled stage fright, but after he got his rhythm, he felt comfortable. Over Here's success created opportunities. It pushed him in the direction of Hollywood and introduced him to actors like Treat Williams and Marilu. Music, Henner. He tried out for more than 50 advertisements that same year. He began making $500 a day from music after landing gigs for Dr. Pepper and distinctive car accessories. He felt stable for the first time. He even relocated to a tiny space in Hell's Kitchen. These advertisements kept him alive, encouraged him to try out for music, and prevented hope from fading. He tried out for God's Spell in 1975, but he didn't get the job because he messed up a song at the callback. He was devastated by the rejection. It made him reconsider his preparation. He went to Milton Katselas, an acting coach. He dug deeper and discovered feeling he had never used before thanks to Katselas. One of the most significant lessons he ever learned was from that failure. The audition that altered everything then took place. Carter, welcome back. He was on the verge of accepting a Broadway part because he needed money and nearly missed it. In order to keep him afloat, casting director Lynn Stallmaster gave him a minor role in The Devil's Rain, which held him back. He was sweating and gum-chewing when he entered the quarter audition in March 1975. He lit up the room, however, as he read the lines for Eddie Barbarino. The producers were unable to turn away. He was one of the most well-known youthful faces on television by May 1976. Children imitated his gait. His photo appeared on shirts that were sold everywhere. Carter was a disturbed fugitive who appeared on Emergency in 1975 before he was broadcast. In 1972, when he was just 18, he appeared on the show for the first time as an injured hiker. The 1975 episode had a different impact. He shaped the persona using recollections from his own life, bringing genuine feeling to the part. Producers took note. They perceived depth. They saw a person capable of carrying more significant stories. Then, in 1976, the boy in the plastic bubble appeared. He portrayed an adolescent named Todd Lubitsch, who was born without an immune system. David Vedder, the real youngster who lived in seclusion from 1971 until his death, music, in 1984, served as a loose inspiration for the story. The movie was a huge sensation when it debuted on November 12, 1976. Diana Hyland, who performed music for his mother, became close to Travolta throughout filming. He was devastated when she passed away soon after from cancer. For years, it shaped his emotional life and forced him to examine himself more closely as an actor. There was more pressure on John Travolta than most young actors could bear when he entered the Saturday Night Fever tryouts in 1976. Nevertheless, there was something about him that drew everyone in. For Tony Monroe, over 200 actors applied, but Travolta had a gait that no other actor could match. After watching a little clip from Brady Bunch, where a character strutted with a bestung kind of swagger, he studied music and imitated it until it felt natural to him. Director John Badham recognized the man as soon as he entered the room. That brief stroll would come to represent Tony. Prior to this, Travolta was primarily recognized as Welcome Back Carter's Vinnie Barbarino. However, Saturday Night Fever drastically altered his life. At the age of 23, he became the youngest Oscar candidate for Best Actor since 1932. In 1976, producer Robert Stigwood signed him to a $1 million Stree film deal, which was nearly unheard of for a budding actor. The iconic white suit sequences were shot inside the actual Brooklyn Disco. 2001 Odyssey a year later, in 1977. The crowd was boisterous, the lights were hot, and there was constant pressure to make everything flawless. For the Stay Alive segment alone, Badham put a lot of pressure on everyone. He insisted on almost 100 takes. Travolta continued to spin and slide until the concrete floor began to bleed from his knees at 11:54. Because Tony Monroe was a paint store clerk and could not afford anything custom, Patricia von Brandenstein, the costume designer, found the white suit off the rack. That straightforward decision gave the ensemble a genuine feel, and the wide lapels and flared pants became a disco staple. The soundtrack followed. When the Bee Gees tracks were released in late 1977, the music took off. The album became the second best-selling soundtrack in history, after The Bodyguard, with 40 million copies sold globally and 16 million in the US. It topped the Billboard charts for 24 music weeks. The Bee Gees altered the sound of Staying Alive to fit Tony's emotional journey, and it became Travolta's song. Every music situation he danced in was enhanced by their falsetto, which complemented his persona. On December 14th, 1977, the film's premiere at Mann's Chinese Theater was attended by a throng that felt more like a festival than a movie screening. The movie caught fire inside. It earned about $90 million in the US and $350 million globally by the end of 1978. At the age of 23, Travolta received his first Oscar nomination. An estimated 200 million people saw the movie when it was broadcast on television by ABC 3 years later. Despite all of this success, Travolta declined a $1 million endorsement deal out of concern of being permanently stuck as the disco boy. There was a genuine sense of tension during the filming. Travolta witnessed a real brawl start in a Brooklyn disco one evening. One of the worst passages in the script was shaped by the noise, the fear, and the danger that stuck with him. Later, the MPAA compelled the near-rape scene to be removed. However, the rawness Travolta saw remained within him. It made him steer clear of parts that were overly predictable or ethnic. Many of his early choices were influenced by his dread of being confined. Everyone expected him to accept everything after Saturday Night Fever. Instead, in order to preserve his dramatic persona, he declined an appearance in Animal House in 1978. He poured his Fever earnings into his first record. The album, simply named John Travolta, combined disco and ballads and peaked at number 14 on the Billboard 200. He was attempting to demonstrate that, unlike many young celebrities, he could develop without burning out. Grease followed. In 1972, Travolta portrayed Danny Zuko on Broadway. Thus, the character resided within him. Travolta stepped up music and performed Greased Lightning live on set when the producers were considering Henry Winkler. Olivia Newton-John assisted him with vocal coaching, and his self-assurance helped him land the part. In the summer of 1977, filming got on at Venice High School, which was later renamed Riel High. Travolta made Danny Zuko unforgettable by fusing his Broadway dancing prowess with his newfound movie celebrity, music. The crew was filming the hand jive scene at Venice Beach by July 1977. The excitement was intense as over 500 extras performed as students. The action feels so lively since Travolta made a lot of unplanned gestures. He pushed through a hand injury sustained during a stunt that day, and the crew had to make urgent adjustments. When you see the scene, you can still feel the magic, music that the turmoil around him generated. Grease became a big financial sensation when it debuted in theaters in June 1978. With a meager $6 million budget, it earned $132 million in the US and over $395 million globally. Travolta was paid $2.5 million, making him Hollywood's highest-paid actor. Travolta consistently maintained that the rumors of an off-screen romance with Olivia Newton-John were purely professional. He went from being a star to a legend because of the movie. Something unpleasant was going on underneath all that achievement. Travolta discovered his mother, Helen, had breast cancer while on the press tour in Greece. To spare him, she had kept it from him. Carrying that pain, he completed the music last sequences. Travolta subsequently said that Danny Zuko became more vulnerable as a result of Helen's death in 1978. The cast praised him for maintaining his professionalism in the face of tragedy. His single Let Her In 1978 followed. It became popular, peaking at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and remaining at number 1 for 7 weeks in the UK. ABC even had a John Travolta music special planned, but filming was impossible due to schedule conflicts. His only solo top 10 hit in the US is still Let Her In. He received an offer to become Superman that same year. Travolta subsequently acknowledged that the choice tortured him, but Christopher Reeve ultimately accepted the role. Superman influenced the direction of superhero movies and made over $300 million worldwide. His entire career might have been different if he had accepted it. When Urban Cowboy song came out in 1980, Travolta jumped right in. In an effort to honestly depict Bud Davis, he spent months practicing bull riding from actual Texas ranchers. He was hurled so hard during a rehearsal that he briefly lost feeling in his legs. The crew, music, went into a panic. Even before being examined, Travolta insisted they continue. Reshoots with Deborah Winger had to be postponed because the injury was determined to be a fractured ankle. Although the pain remained with him, viewers also appreciated the film's harsh realism. He joined Blowout in 1981. The Watergate-era's paranoia permeated the narrative. Director Brian De Palma required a scream that sounded natural for one crucial scene. Nothing was successful. Travolta produced a raw sound that was precisely music, what De Palma was looking for, by drawing on his own improvisational experience from Welcome Back, Kotter. It turned into one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. Then came Staying Alive in 1983. Travolta took over as executive producer in addition to reprising his role as Tony Monroe. The budget increased to $22 million, or almost $64 million in today's currency. He and Sylvester Stallone fought behind the scenes about artistic control. Everything was slowed down by the strain. Nevertheless, the film earned $127 million globally. The box office demonstrated Tony Monroe's continued influence despite the criticism. John Travolta entered 1985 with the intention of creating a straightforward love drama. But the movie Perfect drew him into something more serious. He portrayed a Rolling Stone reporter who was embroiled in a legal dispute over tapes that he would not provide over. He was dealing with an actual contract dispute with Paramount about unpaid residuals from Grease at the time. So the scene sounded oddly similar to him. Over $180 million has been made worldwide from the film. However, Travolta had not gotten all of the songs he was entitled to. The movie actually failed at the box office, and the case was quietly handled, but it left him bruised. Out of a $20 million budget, it only made $12.9 million. It was destroyed by critics, and his career faltered. Nevertheless, the performance had a peculiar spark that people still discuss because of the weird overlap between the courtroom scenario in the film and his actual fight. After only 4 years, everything changed once more. Travolta starred in the straightforward comedy Look Who's Talking 1989, in which Bruce Willis narrated a baby's ideas. It didn't appear to be a significant return. It didn't even appear to be serious. But everyone was taken aback by the film. Salvaged Travolta at a time when his career had reached its lowest ebb, and it brought him $297 million globally. He had no significant offers prior to that movie, and studio interest in him was waning. However, Travolta and Willis recorded their scenes together, joking about and playing off each other. Viewers adored the film's warm energy, which came from its organic flow. Travolta returned to the game after that. But something more sinister struck him that same year. His former manager accused him of embezzlement and filed a $5 million lawsuit against him. The revelations revealed how unprepared Travolta had been for fame, even though the lawsuit ended out of court. He had earned more than $100 million in the 1970s without closely monitoring how it was managed. He hardly looked at the decisions made by management and advisors. He became aware of how much money had eluded him by the end of the lawsuit. It turned into a pivotal moment when he at last took charge of his own money. He got to know Kelly Preston during this turbulent time. On the set of an unreleased 1987 movie, they first met. However, things didn't develop much deeper until they joined Scientology together in 1989. At a moment when Travolta was coping with 4 consecutive failures, that common belief brought them together. When nothing else seemed definite, their partnership turned into a sanctuary of security and serenity. After getting married in 1991, they remained together through all of life's highs and lows until Kelly passed away in 2020. He was likewise moving towards softer projects at the time. He played the lead in the 1991 film Eyes of an Angel, which featured music and told the story of a father and daughter who develop a kinship with a wounded dog. Although it wasn't a huge hit, it reflected his emotional state. He preferred heartfelt and familial tales above spectacular ones. His choice of movies started to reflect the more grounded nature of his own existence. As he looks back a bit further, he still has one: music regret. He had an offer to play the lead in Top Gun in 1986. His fear of heights conflicted with his passion in flying, so he declined. The film, which starred Tom Cruise, brought in over $357 million worldwide. Travolta subsequently acknowledged that, given how quickly his career took a nosedive, it was one of his greatest lost opportunities. He carried that silent lesson with him for years. Then, in 1994, Pulp Fiction took a crazy turn. Travolta had just returned from marketing the movie in Europe, so his dance with Uma Thurman at Jack Rabbit, music, Slims was shot in 20 tiring takes, and he unintentionally shot Marvin in the face when his finger slipped on the toy gun during a hectic music take. Except for Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, who maintained their composure and continued, everyone froze. The take felt raw, so Tarantino retained it. When Travolta dropped to his knees in a subsequent scene, he also hurt his foot. And there was actual pain in the cry that the entire world heard. The tangled electric feeling that made pulp literature a cultural landmark was shaped by all that intensity. He played Chile Palmer, a lovable lone shark that wanders into Hollywood, in the 1995 film Get Shorty. Using tales he had heard from actual Miami mob figures, he had lived several lines. The movie won accolades and made $72 million globally. The director had to adapt sections around him because of how well he improvised. His Leighton-Andes revival was aided by such confidence. However, a horrific event occurred that same year. The navigation system abruptly failed as the Gulfstream II turbo aircraft was being flown from Fort Lauderdale to Maine. Radios stopped working, visibility was poor, and air traffic authorities had to reroute a Boeing 727 to help him and his co-pilot navigate through the clouds as they descended. Travolta conducted a high-speed emergency landing after the 2 aircraft approached perilously. He remembered that moment. A year later, it even served as inspiration for a portion of the phenomenon in which his character, following a flash of light, acquires remarkable talents. Even though he doesn't talk about it much, the episode is still one of his closest experiences with death. He and Nicolas Cage filmed Face Off 2 years later. Every day, the prosthesis underwent 8-hour sessions with music. To make the faces appear alive, artists created moving skulls, manually punched every hair, and used small motors to shape the faces. Because they were frequently plastered in makeup, Cage and Travolta occasionally failed to recognize one another. Despite the film's $245 million global box office receipts, the physical music cost was high. Throughout the production, both performers experienced skin irritation and required medical attention. Travolta, however, made every effort to maintain his character because he thought it would help the narrative remain plausible. He received an offer for a cameo in Titanic shortly after, music that When Kelly told him she was expecting their son, Jet, in 1997, he declined what would have been a momentous occasion. He took a break from the limelight to concentrate on his family. Few people were aware of the music's silent sacrifice at the time. Then he made a choice he would always remember. In an attempt to create a big science fiction franchise based on a book he loved, he invested $20 million of his own money in Battlefield Earth in 2000. The film only made $29 million globally, despite costing $73 million. Travolta got the Razzie for Worst Actor after critics tore it up. It turned out to be one of Hollywood's most notorious failures. Some even questioned whether the initiative was influenced by his affiliation with Scientology. In Hollywood, the movie became a cautionary tale about how even well-liked celebrities can miscalculate a passion endeavor. Swordfish came in 2001. Travolta portrayed the abrasive, attention-seeking antagonist Gabriel Shear. For a theatrical stunt during filming, he even piloted a helicopter. Travolta maintained he could manage the risks despite the FAA's warnings to the crew. The movie became a fashionable smash and made $147 million worldwide, despite the fact that many critics thought he wasn't suitable for the part. Nevertheless, the stunt turned into one of the main talking points of the movie. Not quite as bad as what happened in 2009. While the family was in the Bahamas, his 16-year-old son Jet passed away. The heartache was too much to bear. A few months later, an ambulance driver claimed to have evidence of a cover-up and attempted to demand $25 million from the family. Travolta described doing CPR on his son while pleading with him to breathe during the trial. In public, it shattered him. Beyond the glitz of Hollywood, the public witnessed another side of him. It demonstrated the frailty of even the largest stars. In the 2007 film Hairspray, he portrayed Edna Turnblad, a character that needed hours of makeup every day. He added music, warmth, and joy to this role. The movie provided people a new cause to adore him and brought in over $22 million globally. Behind the scenes, he was trying to strike a balance between the film's upbeat tone and the weight of his own struggles. He was introduced to a lighter world in the same year by Wild Hogs. For a brief period, it brought back the buddy comedy and brought in $253 million. Travolta had a small collision that left him hurt because he insisted on performing actual motorbike acrobatics. Nevertheless, they frequently rode together in between takes because of how well the cast bonded. It turned into one of his more contented shootings. Then, in 2010, a tiny light appeared. Travolta and Kelly welcomed their son Benjamin via surrogacy after losing Jet. He came to represent the family's recovery. After the earthquake, Travolta pushed himself into charity, even delivering goods to Haiti aboard a Qantas 707. Later on, that aircraft came to represent his service. He made a comeback to television years later, portraying Robert Shapiro in the People v. O.J. Simpson case. For the part, he put on 25 pounds and studied Shapiro's voice, style, and movements. Critics gave the series high marks when it debuted in 2016 music. Travolta has again demonstrated his ability to reinvent himself and received an Emmy nomination. One of the show's highlights was his performance. He pursued the project for years. Then, in 2018, he starred in Gotti. It received negative reviews and a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes due to cancellation speculations. He stood behind it nevertheless. By 2025, he claimed that because music was important to him personally, he never regretted creating it. Kelly Preston's death from breast cancer at the age of 57 in 2020 was the most devastating blow. Travolta posted heartfelt remembrances online. Later, He told him her last words and stated that he would live for happiness since she had begged him to. Millions of people sensed his sorrow when he shared a video of himself singing "Come Rain or Come Shine" on her birthday in 2025. He played Santa Claus in a Capital One holiday commercial that same year. Music. He performed a set with 50 dancers and brilliant lights at the age of 71. On November 27, 2025, the advertisement debuted at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Supporters applauded it as evidence that he still had the same charisma on stage as he did in Greece. During all of that, death, music, frauds that claimed he had died surfaced in 2025. Using straightforward pictures and quiet assurance, he silenced them. He continues to fly his Boeing 707 for charitable purposes. He continues to coach aspiring actors. He is still employed. He continues to move.